Okay, so this is a quick and simple tutorial for anybody who's new to game development, tired of traditional texture painting and using Godot. Honestly, I'm sure this method would work for other engines like Unity or Unreal. However, I'll only be demonstrating with Godot because that's basically all I've ever used. Okay, so to start off, you've got your 3D model. It doesn't have to be great. Mine isn't particularly. It's just a tree with some goo dripping off of it. I've already UV unwrapped it, as you can see here. This UV isn't exactly incredible for traditional texture painting, but honestly, for what we'll be doing today, it'll work fine. So firstly, what you're going to do is, after you've UV unwrapped it, however you want to UV unwrap it, it doesn't really matter. I think as long as it looks presentable enough. You're going to want to create a few placeholder materials. Creating materials in Blender is super easy. You just click this little plus button here, you click new, you name the material. I could call this, I don't know, I'm just going to call it Among Us because I think that's a funny name, and you know, give it a color. You know, I've made it blue, but you can make it yellow or whatever. There's a whole bunch of nodes. I really recommend learning the Blender node system, but this isn't a materials tutorial in that sense. So I'm just going to get rid of that. But definitely recommend looking into something like that if you're interested. Oh, can't remove in edit mode. Right. Anyway, so. Yeah, there don't have to be anything incredible, but you will need as many materials in here as you plan to have on the final model. These materials are just placeholders. So yeah, I've got one for the tree, one for the blood, and one for the ends of the tree, which if I go into material preview, you can see there. I haven't actually created a proper texture for those at the moment, but yeah, it's just there in case I want to later on. So each of these textures I recommend having as a significantly different color from the rest of the ones that you're using, just so you don't accidentally fill in something like, let's say I take this branch here and I accidentally filled it in with a blood texture. That's really obvious and I can see that I've done that. Now the reason you're going to want to do this in this way is that when you replace the materials in Godot, they will fill into the areas that these materials are in at the moment. So all of this blood is going to be sharing the same texture because it's the same material. All of this bark is going to be sharing the same, texture because it will be the same material. So anyway, once you've filled in the areas with your temporary materials, you're going to want to go and export your finished model to GLTF. GLTF is arguably the best format to export to for Godot. It's really simple. So you're going to want to go up here, drop down this. It might be GLB when you come here. I've got to remember my settings, so it automatically sets to GLTF, or at least I thought it did. I do now. You're going to want to turn off the material import, otherwise it's going to import these materials, and you will get tired of it importing these materials. You just want the material slots, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I'm now going to show you what you do once you've imported the GLTF to Godot, which is pretty simple. It's just a drag and drop. You just put it wherever. You're going to want to make a new inherited scene, so you can right click on it or you can double click on it. I prefer to double click, honestly. It's pretty easy. You don't want to open it anyway, you do want to make a new inherited scene. Then once you've got that new inherited scene, it'll be set up like this is on the left. This is basically default how I left it, and you're going to want to click on the bottom one. You're going to want to open up this material little drop down here, and your 3 materials will be in there. So if you remember from Blender, we've got the tree, the blood, and the tree ends. Here it's the same, we've got the tree, the blood, and the tree ends. The tree ends are the same material as the bark at the moment. Oops. But I can change these to just about whatever I want. So say I wanted the bark to be lava rock. I would just take my lava rock shader, drag it in, boom, it's lava rock now. And honestly, I think this is the main reason to use materials. It's so easy to create a different asset. like it's nothing. Like if I take the cooled lava rock and then I take this lava rock, suddenly that's a fire tree. It doesn't look incredible, but it would look passable. Sorry for the jump cut there, I'm just going to take care of something very quickly. But as I was saying, Material Maker, that's what I made these textures and materials in. Well, these aren't really textures. These each material I've got is a shader. So each one is procedurally generated by the engine. It's a little more CPU heavy, but I think they end up looking better than traditional textures. There's no compression or anything on them, and it's really only a minor increase in the amount of processing power it needs. I may do a Material Maker tutorial at some point. I think I've already said that. If I haven't, whoops. That'll probably come maybe a couple days after this tutorial goes up, because I know that this tutorial is basically worthless without that tutorial. But that's not to say that you can't make convincing textures in Godot. Obviously they aren't going to be as good as this. These are using timers and everything for the different glow effects, but you can still turn assets into other assets. Like say that I wanted to just quickly get rid of the lava goo that was dripping off of this, right? I'd clear that material, I'd make a new spatial material. This is the default for materials in Godot. I'd set the flag to transparent, and I'd go down to here, the albedo, and I'd just lower the alpha, and suddenly, you know, the goo's gone. It's just charred tree, which, I mean, obviously it's very, very useful to be able to do stuff like this, and it's why I recommend using materials over basic textures. You know, with a basic texture you'd have to go in and make a different, you know, texture for this, and you'd have to make sure it was using the alpha channels and everything, and it's a big mess. Obviously there are some things that you probably want to use traditional textures for, like complex designs and patterns and stuff that you don't want to have to be you know, stuff like that is a lot more difficult to make as a material. You know, but basic 3D assets, definitely I'd recommend using materials over with. So yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. I hope you enjoyed the very quick, not very coherent tutorial. I'll answer any questions that anyone's got, I guess, in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video, because the more you do that, the more bad tutorials I can make.